60,000 coronavirus tests for the state of Montana. Is that even possible, or is it just a big number? I'm Annie Johnson, and I'll have the full story coming up.
Gallatin County Commissioners have decided the Big Sky Country State Fair has been canceled. I'm Cody Boyer in Bozeman with the details as to why and their next precautions.
Just ahead of 6:30 back here in Montana this morning, Caitlin Corbett, Chet Lehman, Matt Elwell. Definitely sad news that the fair is canceled.
I know. My kids are going to be really disappointed.
I know. I think we kind of saw it coming, but sad news that it's finally happened. But on the bright side, beautiful start to our day out there today.
It is. We've had some great pictures from last night to this morning, so thank you for those folks sending that in. Be sure to get on our social media. You can post it there. You can email us. Put it on the app.
Yes, we do.
Show us what's going on out there.
That's right. I'll show you what the temperatures look like right now.
Nice.
It's not as pretty as some of those photos, but not bad. 40s for most of us, 37 in West Yellowstone. General trend for us is fairly dry. There is an isolated chance of a couple of pop-up showers or thunderstorms in some of the mountains of western and southwestern Montana today, but our daytime highs should be well into the 70s. We've got a couple of dry days, and then we're talking record high as you head into the weekend, or at least the potential for that. We'll break that all down for you coming up in just a few minutes.
All right, thank you very much, Matt. There is another death from the coronavirus reported by the state health department.
Yeah, that now brings the total to 17. The latest death happened in Yellowstone County, a woman in her 80s who had been in the hospital. Also, Yellowstone County Sheriff's Office confirmed with MTN News that a woman inmate at the Yellowstone County Detention Center has tested positive for coronavirus. She was hospitalized last week. Bighorn County has confirmed its latest positive, a teenage man who is recovering at home. 2 people are currently in the hospital in the state. 441 people have recovered.
And in less than a week, Phase 2 of Governor Steve Bullock's plans to reopen the state will begin, and that includes plans for thousands more COVID-19 tests. MTN's Annie Johnson reports on just how likely that is.
Earlier this week, Governor Bullock announced that he wants to ramp up COVID testing to 60,000 a month.
I think it can be possible if the state lab can do some of that testing. And from what I've heard, the overflow testing would be sent to a national reference lab. And there are issues with getting the swabs, but I think it's going to be possible over the next few months. I think they can do that.
But don't be alarmed. 60,000 tests does not mean 60,000 new cases. In fact, Dr. Nero says the correlation is decreasing.
Early on, the positive ratio of tests was maybe 10 to 20%. And those were when we had the initial cases in March and April. But now the rate is much lower. It's much less than 1%, because we're actually testing a lot of patients who are coming in for procedures to the hospital to make sure they don't have COVID to protect our staff.
Right now, the hospital is already contributing several thousands to that testing number.
And we can do up to 100 tests a day here in our lab on campus. And so that makes about 500 a week and up to about a couple thousand a month.
Which is progress from just a couple of months ago.
Early on, we had somewhat of a shortage in our testing supplies, but once we got up and running in mid-April, we weren't short on any testing supplies.
But as more testing becomes available, the doctor warns against using certain tests.
It's not very reliable in those at-home tests, so I wouldn't particularly use those. They haven't been well tested, or we use the term validated, in a laboratory setting. We have the same test as the state lab, and it's a CDC assay.
For more information on the virus or testing, it's always a good idea to check out credible sources like the CDC website. Reporting at Bozeman Health, Annie Johnson, MTN News.
6:33 now in local business news. While the CARES Act approved by Congress during the early weeks of the pandemic provided a broad shot of financial help for individuals up to large businesses, there's still been reports of small businesses which continue to struggle. Montana Senator Steve Daines is hoping a bill he's co-sponsoring with New Jersey Democrat Senator Cory Booker will help fill some of those gaps. Now, the Small Business Local Relief Fund would target $50 billion in economic relief to seed and scale relief funds for small businesses at the city or county level. This time around, dollars are for businesses with fewer than 20 employees who may have been missed by the first round of payroll protection and could come as grants, loans, or professional support. Senator Daines says the relief is critical since that's the size of 90% of Montana's businesses.
The original PPP plan had 500 employees or less. This is targeted at 20 or less to make sure the smaller businesses really have access to these resources. And then we also would move the decision-making closer to where the loans would be administered. So down to the community level. Instead of being something driven by Washington, D.C., Literally, we'd move these funds out to the communities and let the communities administer those dollars to their small businesses.
Senator Dane says there's flexibility in the bill that should help Montana's outdoor industry, where guides and outfitters have been especially hard hit by the pandemic. And now here's your way to help others suffering because of the pandemic. Our Rebound Montana Relief Fund is off to a great start. Latest numbers show a little over $145,000 has been raised so far. That includes match from the Montana Television Network and AMB West Philanthropies. We're going to match the first $150,000 that's actually donated. Montana Community Foundation has also partnered with us in this. You can find various funds to donate to at KXLF or kbzk.com/relief.
Well, we mentioned it just a bit earlier. Yesterday, Gallatin County Commissioners decided to follow the recommendation of the Gallatin County Fair Board and cancel the Big Sky Country State Fair. MTN's Cody Boyer has been following this story closely and tells us what this means for the future.
It's a decision that commissioners say is not taken lightly, following the recommendation from the Fair Board last week to cancel amid COVID-19 concerns. While the 4-H are finding ways virtually to continue on, the board says there's just no way to have rides like last year out of safety.
I've been in this industry for multiple decades now, and it's a big deal to everybody.
To Fairgrounds General Manager Dennis Voller and the rest of the board, canceling the fair came down to two options: keep the fair at full or cancel this year's completely.
Fairs are one thing. It's an opportunity to make lifetime memories with families and friends. We have vendors that are part of the culture of this community, and they rely on this piece.
Voller says while the fair works with over $700,000 to operate annually, the 4-H, they are a different story. Commissioners pushed, could 4-H still go on?
I would love to have just a 4-H fair.
Turns out they think it can.
I believe with all my heart that a 4-H fair can be pulled off.
Implement a Gallatin County 4-H program where kids could potentially bring their animals to their old barns once more following CDC rules.
Well, I think it solidifies the long term of 4-H.
It's good news to Gallatin County 4-H agent Janae Godin.
It's always going to be a part of your life from when you were younger all the way to as an adult, and you always will go back to that.
Godin says 4-H leaders will meet Wednesday night to discuss options, a paper plan to present to the health department.
What's plan A, what's plan B, what's worst case scenario, what's best case scenario?
Then, whether it's building a robot or showing a pig, maybe 3, the 4-H will be ready.
I really do hope that we have some openness in July that we can be like, oh my gosh, there's hope.
In Bozeman, Cody Boyer, MTN News.
County commissioners say they will talk about this further at their board meeting next Tuesday.
Well, some new information this morning about a man who was attacked by a grizzly bear in Big Sky on Monday. According to Montana Department of Fish, Wildlife and Parks, the man was mountain biking by himself on private property on a trail above Ouzel Falls when the bear attacked him after being surprised. FWP says it's not looking for the bear, does not plan to euthanize it at this point because the encounter was likely due to it being surprised. Call was reported around 1 o'clock in the afternoon, but the attack obviously happened sometime before that. Man suffered injuries to his face and back and was airlifted to Billings. Now, as of Monday, the man, who was in his 60s, was critical but in stable condition. Gallatin County Sheriff's Office says it is now paying close attention to calls coming in on bear sightings in that area. So, continue to follow the progress of that story.
Absolutely, and thank God he is in stable condition now, which is definitely good news.
Absolutely true.
Could have been a lot worse.
That's for sure.
All right, we're going to take a break, but up next on Montana This Morning, scientists at companies around the world working on a coronavirus vaccine, and people are clamoring for one. So when it comes out, would you be willing to take it? Coming up, you might be surprised what many Americans are saying. We've got that next, and first, here's a look at what's coming up on CBS This Morning.
Good morning. Ahead on CBS This Morning, we're in Minneapolis with the latest on the firing of 4 police officers following the death of an unarmed black man after an attempted arrest. We're going to talk with the victim's grieving brothers and cousin. Also, SpaceX founder Elon Musk, in his only broadcast interview before today's scheduled launch, he talks about his dream of being the first private business to fly humans into space. And game on, Super Bowl champion Rob Gronkowski and tennis legend Venus Williams on how their new CBS show is bringing fun to TV during the pandemic. We'll see you at 7.